Hello, Tommy.
Hello, darling. How are we doing this morning?
Well,
Yeah.
I've had better mornings, I'll be completely honest. I haven't really slept. It's because I'm just anxious. My mind's going over time because I'm worrying about my brother. But I've
Right.
also been playing Pokopia, which is a new Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch. And the entire before you stop listening, listener, right? If you're not a massive nerd, I won't bang on about it. Those of you that are playing it already get it. But the whole premise of this new game is essentially that humans have fucked up the earth so badly that they've completely disappeared. And you are in the process of restoring all of the habitats. So all of the little guys, all the Pokemon can come back and live their best lives. So you're clearing away all the mess and watering plants. And I just feel like they knew it was the game that the elder millennials needed who were maybe playing Pokemon back in the early 2000s.
I was just about to say I can definitely see the appeal given the current sort of climate.
What, living in another world full of joy and happiness where you
Yeah.
feel that when you do things, it's having some sort of impact or effect, like
Yeah.
positive impact or effect. I think, there's a lot of content online and stuff about how all-consuming this game can be, but I think obviously the word to use, which will be apt for the conversation that we want to have today, is it is addictive.
Right.
It is hard to put down.
So, I mean, obviously we'll get into the sort of the addiction of it all, but I mean, what's going on?
Well, there is a very important meeting today. Right now, my brother is having an appointment with his oncologist to talk about his treatment, where he's at post being diagnosed in November now. And at the moment, we don't really know what the news is or what the update is. It could be amazingly positive. It might not be so positive. So, obviously, for me, being a anxious neurodivergent chaos goblin, having something like that on the calendar over the weekend. The way I put it, I made a post about it in a call. I was like, I need it to be Monday 11 a.m. and I need it to never
Yeah.
be Monday at 11 a.m. It's like,
Yeah.
obviously you and I had a talk over the weekend and I've had a good cry and everything. So it's just fucking awful when people that you love are that ill and suffering that much, because the powerlessness it's probably a word that's going to come up a lot today for us. But what about you? Because you're stressed out this morning.
I mean, look, people like us don't do well with uncertainty at the best of times, so I can't even imagine what this has been like for you, and I just wish I could come over and take you out for a donut and a coffee, mate. I'm right there with you.
I think you and I are both well overdue a coffee and a donut at this point, aren't we?
Yes.
It's so lovely for us to get to meet like this and be having these kind of more in-depth conversations
Yeah.
every week, but it is making me miss you even more.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, isn't it? Because I mean, it's really changed things, hasn't it? Because I mean, obviously we have these conversations all the time anyway, but now they're sort of public. It's a very, very strange feeling.
Here's the thing, it's all very well and good us being like, okay, we're going to talk about the things people don't want to talk about, we're going to swim through the stigma, and but it's still tough, right?
Yeah.
It's still hard to do that, and obviously we've got a lot on in terms of our personal lives, running businesses, trying to keep things afloat financially as the world falls apart. And we didn't want the podcast to become one of those things that we were gonna get stressed about. But it's still something you and I, if we're gonna do it, we're gonna go all in, right? So it's kind of been a lot getting this going, getting this off the ground.
I have to say, like, I've had a right busy old morning. I'm stressed about 25 different things at once. But actually, like, having this on the calendar is like, okay, but that's your time to, like, blow off some steam, have a chat, and then you can get back into the day. So actually, like, yes, it is difficult finding the time, but I'm grateful that we do.
Yeah, same. And I just, again, want to give a really big shout out to everybody in the Tommy and Hannah pod Patreon. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the sign-ups. Thanks for your feedback. YouTube. We haven't even got video on
Yeah.
YouTube, babe. And everyone's getting all subscribed and clicking and liking and doing the business for us on YouTube as well. So we do
So
really
good.
appreciate it. And, you know, it is for you. It's for those of you who we know are so much like us. And we can't bear the thought of you feeling alone in that right now. So we did decide today that we wanted to have a conversation about a topic that's obviously been absolutely huge for both of us.
Yeah.
In both of our lives. Do you need a little bit more time just to get some of this stress out though? Is there anything particular that you think it would be helpful to talk about, or is it just that like having to do admin in a world where you're like, why?
No, I mean, look, we're approaching. I've got sort of 3 busy times of year, right? I've got Halloween, which is a big one. I've got Christmas, which is a big one, and I've got Wave Gothic Treffen. So, sort of for anyone that isn't from Germany or isn't a massive goth, this is an enormous goth festival in a small town of Germany, Leipzig, right? And it's absolutely insane. Like, this small town is just completely taken over by sort of like every different faction of the goth community. So it is just like, you know, you go to Lidl and everyone's got horns on. Like, it's wild.
I've been to Wave Gothic Treffen, and watching a small German town literally be completely taken over by goths from literally all over the fucking world. Like, it is the white face paint, the parasols, the pointy shoes, but like you said, it's all of those different parts of goth, which you obviously know far more about than I do, because all the punk kids come out of Berlin. I remember there was a party that because a lot of events get put on like on and around Wave Gothic Treffen in Leipzig, and there was a party called Glitter and Trauma, which I still think is the best name for a party ever.
It's a great party.
I'd love to say I had a great time, but I didn't. I was very new and sober, and I low-key had quite a terrible time, but I did get to go inside the crematorium, because one of the things that they do is they open up the cemetery there, and all of you can go and have a look at all of it, because they're goths, they love it. And everybody's draped over the trees, like they're all in the bushes, and because everyone's doing photo shoots and taking an opportunity to like wear their best look. So like you go to the cemetery on like the Sunday morning and you're like, whoop, and they're literally like coming out of the bushes.
I mean, the thing is, like, I mean, talking about sort of different sort of subcultures, I think, you know, there's various sort of punk festivals around the world as well. Like, I mean, Blackpool's got a big one, Rebellion. And I think having punks descend on your city is maybe a bit more of a difficult thing. Whereas, like, the goths are extremely well behaved. You know, they just want to have a couple of pints and dance. Whereas, like, the punks are maybe a little bit more destructive and loud. I think that the locals of Leipzig actually really like it. It brings a lot of tourism. It brings a lot of money. And for the most part, the goths are like, yeah, as I say, quite well behaved.
No, very respectful of the city, which is why they get to come back and do it. Is it every year or every other year? Because it's a huge festival.
Yeah, it's every year. I think it started at the end of the 80s, if I've got that right, or maybe the beginning of the 90s.
Yeah, I think it was like Jesus and Mary Chain headlining the main stage when I went. But I think one of the only acts I watched was Boy Harsher. You know, because I was just like, I don't know how into this I am. But obviously, it's a huge deal for you because you're taking center stage yourself this year, right?
Yeah, there's not so much that I can really say about that at this point, but there's going to be 2 spots where you can buy Tommy Val's stuff, and some sort of event which I'll get into later. But you know, as well as that, sort of the 2 months leading up to the festival, it's when all the goths want my stuff to wear to the festival. So the orders start coming in. People want really elaborate custom stuff. So it's prepping all the stuff for the shops that will be actually at the festival, and it's all the additional orders that come with that. So I'm in the midst of that. There's lots of big changes going on in the business right now. I'm working on some new products. So it's all a lot all at once, and I'm quite tired and stressed out.
And you're in the midst of trying to buy a house, right?
Yeah, there's that as well. Yeah, rather a lot.
You talked about the fact that's been a really, really long process, and just because you've got the mortgage in place doesn't mean you haven't now got to contend with like a big move and a bit of a renovation and
A bit of a renovation.
a bit of a renovation because he's ripping out all that gorgeous tile. He's ripping out all those mid-century modern carpets. Um, well, I think being a bit stressed and the topic we want to talk about today are actually going hand in hand. I think that they're sort of synonymous because we want to talk about sobriety,
Hmm.
recovery, addiction. You and I met because we both landed in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
You were at my first meeting.
Oh, stop. I honestly I'm not gonna be able to make it through this without crying, and I think that's gonna have to be
I
okay
think
today.
that's fine. Yeah, I think I also might not get out of this without an ugly cry.
Did you take 9 years? Is it 9 years in May?
It will
I've
be
been trying
nine
to
years in May.
nine
Yeah,
years.
yeah. So
Shit,
coming up on
dude.
9 years.
You're so close to double digits.
Just yeah, I can't believe it. Like this time has gone so unbelievably quickly. Like I feel like that first meeting was, a couple of years ago, not nearly nine.
I mean, I know what took me to my first AA meeting. It was the raging alcoholism that had gotten so bad that the only strategy I had left was to end my life.
Mm,
And,
mm,
and I'm very fortunate that someone had kind of taken me to a meeting. I'd been kind of sort of on the periphery and around the edges. Like I'd stopped smoking. I think I'd stopped drinking for like 6 weeks, but I just smoked weed every day. So I was going
mm.
to meetings, but I wasn't taking chips, and I just wasn't really I wasn't really in it. But absolutely, I think by the time that you turned up, the greatest gift that getting in those rooms ever gave me, truly.
Oh.
I had about 6 months, I think, when we met.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You're about half a year ahead of me.
6 months of no drinking, no drugs, no mind altering substances, and trying to work a 12-step program. So obviously, I was mad as a bag of badgers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I've thought a little bit about what I do and don't want to say in this, and there's certainly like my life around the time that I got sober was no fun. There's some characters I'd rather leave out of that, but I can remember that like my last drink, I remember just waking up the next day and being so unbelievably full of shame. I can remember looking at the mirror in the mirror and just thinking like I don't like this person very much. I was riddled with shame. And I went on Facebook at the time, and the person that would become my sponsor, who is somebody that has some sort of like cult fame in a way and has done music and fashion and all these other things, and somebody that I long looked up to had posted that they were going to this meeting, that they had something crazy like 25 years sober. And obviously this is somebody that I'd seen in nightlife around London and Berlin, and I was like, that person is sober. That's ridiculous. That just can't be true. But I thought I'll just get myself through the day and I'll go to that meeting. And I went, and I can remember walking into this meeting. It was a queer meeting, and looking around and being like, wow, the cool people are actually here. There was Burkine DJs, there was tattoo artists, there were all these people that were doing incredible things. And for me, the fact that they could go to this place and they could talk about what was going on with them in an open and honest way, I was like, wow, is this the secret sauce? Is this how people are doing this life thing? Um, and it was transformative. And you were there, and I was like, who is that baddie with the little dogs?
Was I in the queer meeting with two dogs at that time? Because that sounds like, yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds about right. Oscar and Edna, God love you both. Um, my dogs kept me alive. They kept me
Yeah.
alive, right? Because when I hit the wall, I was struggling to get off the couch to go to the bathroom. That's how little will to live I had left. And I remember thinking at this point, I'm just going to walk out the front door of this building, and that'll be it. Like, nobody will know where I've gone. I won't know where I'm going. I'll just, but I couldn't, because I had my dogs, and I was worried about who would take care of my dogs. And there's so many times, and I think it was even deliberate when I first got my little dog Oscar. I think I'd only lived in Berlin about 6 months, and I was like, I'm getting a dog. I think a lot of people that moved to Berlin did that. It's like, move to Berlin, get a dog. But I think it was almost strategic because you always had to leave. Because in Berlin, you don't have to leave. The party will go for 3 days. The club is not going to kick you out. Like, no one's ringing the bell at the bar, babe. Which, if you are a like British raised binge drinker like I was a real problem when I first got to Berlin. Which is obviously why the substance abuse went through the fucking roof as well. Because I was getting so drunk because I was drinking for so long. I needed something else to kind of like keep me going. But I remember having a dog was great because I was like, okay, I have to go home because I have to take the dog out. I cannot leave the dog. And, but even that strategy, then there would have been times where I'd have been like, oh, I absolutely have to go home. And then the burden would have fallen on my housemate at the time because I hadn't turned back up. And all of those strategies that you put in place of like, well, if I do this, it means I'll have to do that. Yeah, spoiler, doesn't always work.
No, I didn't have really any of those sort of guardrails. I had like lots of just, sort of call center jobs, because at the time, in Berlin, your rent was probably going to be like 200 euros.
Yep.
If you were, getting paid, I don't know, like 1,200 euros a month in your call center job, you were kind of rolling in it. Like, I remember
living like a king.
Yeah, I was working for Booking.com, and they had a canteen there, and the food was all free. So I was like, I'd go to work completely hungover. I'd eat their food. I was working like, sort of three days a week, I think, and making like £1,000 a month. My rent was about 200 euros, and things were just cheaper then. Like it was just that time in Berlin. And I just felt like I had very little responsibilities. I could yammer on the phone about people's, overbooked reservation all day long, and, it didn't really touch me. So it was, I didn't really feel like I had any responsibilities.
Well, I was running AKA at that point. It's a tattoo studio in Neukölln. That's like my second home. It's a spiritual home for me. It's a really important place, but it's where I met the person who took me to my first meeting. It all connects. But I also was working doing data entry, similar job, going to an office, grabbing a cup of coffee, sitting down, bullshit, right? Just to get a few more euros for a few more of those club martyrs with the vodka in. Or a €2 kebab or whatever it was that, I was surviving on in terms of nutrition at that time as well. Christ. And I remember being out one night, and obviously just one of those amazing Berlin nights. It like really was. There was just like drag queens and glitter, and I was rolling around with all of these people who I thought were obviously like the coolest people in the world, because they were, and just in awe of being in this city and in awe of being able to stay out all night. But I remember it being about 6 a.m. and being like, I've got work at 9. So I either stay out and go straight to the office, or I go home, I take a shower, I try and get like a power nap. And I was like, the power nap is not the best strategy here. Clearly the best thing to do is to just drink copious amounts of caffeine and stay out all night. And I rolled into that job literally straight from like an all-nighter. But the ironic thing is that when I have done things like that and been like, oh God, I've had people be like, oh, I never even noticed. The guy that was my boss then was also like kind of in our friendship circle. That's how I ended up with the job. And I remember like almost making an amends and being like, oh, I used to turn up absolutely still drunk, like stinking. Like, and he, really? Because in terms of productivity, I think that's the problem, right? In terms of people maybe not recognizing or realizing themselves that they have a problem, or other people realizing or recognizing how bad it might have got, is I was also very, very good at like just power through, just do what you need to do. Even if you are like clinically deceased levels of hungover, I would just keep pushing. And sometimes I almost missed that drive, but it was also part of the destruction, the self-destruction.
Yeah, no, same for me. I don't know. I mean, I think, you and I guess, have always sort of had the gift of the gab. So it would be very much like I would just power through it. And especially, chatting on the phone all day about, people's bookings. Like, you know, to be honest, like there's a part of me that's like the simpler times, you know, as I think about getting prepped for this big goth festival and everything else. I'm like, I could have a chat with somebody about their overbooking right now, you know. Like, I don't know if I definitely wouldn't be working for booking.com, I can tell you that much. But
yeah, it's bad because I do that, but then I feel guilty because I know how many people would love to be doing what I'm doing, and kind of like, but sometimes it's like I'll say to Kev, I'll be like, oh, I might look for a job. I'm gonna look for a job. I'm just gonna go there and someone can tell me someone else can tell me what to do. And when I leave, I won't have to think about it. And, you know, because running your own business is very all consuming. But I think there's absolutely a conversation for us to have there about the intersection of alcoholism and workaholism.
Yeah, well, I completely swapped one for the other. I mean, I think a big part of my sort of story, my journey, my journey.
Oh my God, you tell us about your journey, babe.
Yeah, no, I think a big part of it for me was I knew that I could be doing something else. You know, I'd had this dream about having this brand. I'd grown up in the goth scene, and I always knew I wanted to do fashion. And I knew that I was doing myself a disservice, and I knew that I was never going to get it off the ground without getting sober, because I tried, you know, and I could never get enough momentum to really start something. And I was sort of at this crossroads. I was close to turning 30. You know, I got sober when I was 29, and I was like, this isn't going to happen unless you stop that. Like, you were going to have to sacrifice this for that. And I went into it knowing that it couldn't carry on the way that it was, but also that I was meant to be something else. Like, I had this thing in me that needed to happen, and I was heartbroken that I'd let it get so bad that I couldn't follow this dream of mine.
I'm already blubbing here, right? Like, I'm pulling my eyes out because we do this so often, and this is the role that we play to one another, right? Is I listen to you talking, and I just have to remind you of where you are right now.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and also to remember that compassion that we got taught in those rooms, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We weren't choosing it, dude. We didn't choose it. You know, there wasn't, it's like we weren't doing what we were doing with intention. That's the whole fucking point. It removes your ability to do things with intention, which is why you feel that lack of traction. But you were aware of your potential. You were aware of your creativity. You were aware of your talent. You were aware of the person that you were supposed to be, and you knew that you needed to get sober to get there. But I just want to do what I always do, which is say you fucking got there. You got there. You have one of the most incredible partners, right? The relationship that you have, because relationships are such hard work for us. What the fuck, right? But you've got an incredible relationship with an incredibly supportive partner. You're in the process of buying a fucking house together. Can I take you back to that flat where the fridge didn't close? The fridge didn't close for me, right? The drawer of unopened mail. Someone that was like, I think I could do this. I went and studied fashion. I did design. I don't want to be at booking.com. I want to run my own fucking business. And you have built it brick by brick from the ground up with absolutely fuck all, while fighting for your life in terms of the illness, the disease that is addiction, right? This whole like, oh, well, I was fucking it all up and I was making these shitty choices. And I was like, we all do that. We absolutely have to take accountability and responsibility for our behavior, obviously. But also, like, I was doing the best I could with what I fucking had.
Very much that. But there was sort of a sequence of events that sort of fell into place, and all of those things led me to where I am now. You know, I mentioned that sort of the person that would become my sponsor sort of had posted on Facebook, and I'd gone to the meeting because of them. And then they did become my sponsor, and the way that they sort of worked the steps with me, we worked the classic, you know, sort of 12 steps of the big book, but they'd also added in all this extra stuff about like your supercharged super life. And I
did that with your sponsor.
Yeah, a few people did. And there was all this stuff, and what I can say is I've never felt more held. This is a person that sort of took one look at me, had one chat with me, and was like, just believed in me endlessly. I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it. But for them, there was absolutely no chance in hell that I wasn't going to be absolutely huge in what I wanted to do. They believed in me so strongly, and they helped me through this like very strange sort of spiritual transformation where I'll never be able to repay them for what they did. I'll say that.
So, I mean, same. I think, that's it said a lot in We'll Talk lingo, right? If anyone's listening and is like, what is a big book? This is the thing with 12-step recovery. It's kind of a club and it comes with a load of lingo. So when we're talking about steps and sponsors, 12-step recovery involves going through a 12-step process. And it's where you get to really learn about the truth of who you are, and you have to develop a sense of spirituality, right? You have to develop a relationship with a higher power personal to you, but a sponsor is the person who's been through that process and can help you through that process as well. But my first sponsor, same, I was there, in a meeting. I'd made my way back, and for the first time in my life, really said, my name is Hannah, I'm an alcoholic, and I need someone to fucking help me. I had nowhere else to go. I had no other options, and I was terrified of what I might do. And I had a friend on New Year's Eve, which was when I had my last drink in 2017 before I got sober. And my friend on New Year's Eve messaged me saying, you and I are the same. Things have been fucking terrible. They were like, I've been leaving my house. I come back with bruises. I don't know where I've been. I smashed my phone. I get locked out of my house. Like all of the stuff. And they said, I know we've just got to make it through to the other side. And I went to an AA meeting on the 6th of January and they took their own life. Oh. So the only difference between us at that point is someone had taken me to a meeting. Someone had introduced me to recovery. Someone had shown me that there would be people in that room at that time who, if I asked for help, would help me. And my first sponsor put a hand on my shoulder and said, you're going to meet me tomorrow for a cup of coffee. And I said, yes, ma'am. And I'd have done fucking anything that anyone told me for the first time in my life. And when I went through inventory, because you go through a process in step work of you having to get very honest with yourself, obviously, about that behavior. When I went through my inventory for the first time, I was talking about stuff where I had never heard someone else, especially another woman, say, it's not okay. And it wasn't your fault. When we talk about that shame you woke up with that day, like I do think a big like I said, it is accountability, it is responsibility, it is saying, oh, I was such a dick, right? But with that compassion for the fact that you were probably coping the best you could, you're self-medicating, you didn't have any other fucking tools in the kit.
That's it, isn't it? And just then sort of going through that process and picking up those tools along the way, you're sort of encouraged to as we said in the last episode, like develop a relationship with a higher power, and also meditation, which was something I was like, I don't know where to start with that. I've got no idea. I got that app Headspace for a bit, but then me and you started getting into all the woo-woo stuff. And I found, just as I've gotten further into this, like I don't go to meetings anymore unless like something really big happens where I feel like I really need it. But that sort of spiritual connection is something that I've had to stay on top of, and it's really changed over the years, and I've needed to keep it interesting.
Here's the thing. I mean, the AA format for when you sort of tell your story or you talk about things is what it was like, which I think we've kind of talked about. We talked about what happened, how we ended up in those rooms and how transformative it was for us, but also I guess we have to talk about what it's like now. And that one is a little bit more tricky for me because I will not have 9 years. I did not take 9 years. I would have had 9 years on January 6th of 26, but I relapsed. Oh, that's the word, isn't it? I guess if you're sober and you decide not to. But the difficult thing is I always imagined a relapse to be like, whoops, I slipped and here's a double vodka. And I always thought if I relapsed, it was going to be really like kind of exciting. I'd end up going on a flight to Vegas and I'd have like blown a grand in a casino, even though I know fuck all about gambling, and there would be cocaine and sex workers. And they're just like, because they're the most fun ever. They're the best people to hang out with, like. I've been front row at the Spearmint Rhino in Vegas, and I had the best night of my fucking life. Anyway, story for another time. I really thought, I was like, girl, if you come off the wagon with like 7 years, it's gonna be like spectacular chaos, right? And for someone that loves drama, maybe there's a little draw towards that at times. I think that's what we're fighting, all of us, a lot of the time, right? Because there's an element of being addicted to the chaos. Because of the familiarity to it for me, absolutely. My relapse was not sexy. It was not dramatic or cool in any way. I got to the point where I was so fucking crispy and burnt out and just furious at the world, and the lack of justice in the world, that I was like, I'm just gonna smoke some fucking weed, because I can't continue to feel like this all the time. And absolutely, I think people in active recovery would be like, well, yeah, but you stopped talking to your sponsor, you stopped working the steps, you dropped all your sponsees, you'd like, because I moved, I left Berlin, so I left my community, I left my sober network, I left that world of the meetings there if I need it, because I went to some AA meetings in East Belfast. Fuck me. Right? The experience of going to meetings in Berlin, which is the English-speaking meetings, so it's predominantly other expats, and like you said, they're all creative, and it's very inspirational. I mean, people in Belfast have lived through major fucking trauma. These are some of the, like, most amazing but also toughest women I've ever met in my life, and they did a lot of saying the Lord's Prayer and stuff like that, which is obviously just not my style of recovery. I don't need spirituality connected with dogmatic religion, or you're going to lose me immediately. So anyway, bullshit, excuses. As someone that had been very vocal about sobriety and the importance of my sobriety, and I always used to say sobriety is the baseline of all my alchemy, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to smoke some weed. The problem with that is that it means I could then spend 2 hours beachcombing without thinking about any fucking thing else. And the difficult thing with that, obviously, for us, is if you find something that switches the channel or reduces the noise, you're going to want to do it all the fucking time.
I mean, as somebody that knows you and, you know, has known what you've been up against these past couple of years, I just have endless empathy for your situation. Like, I mean, the idea sometimes of being able to punch the fuck it button and say, do you know what, I've had it, I'm out. I completely get it. I completely get it. And I mean, for me, like, I will always point people to those rooms, and I will always speak loudly about what it's done for me. But I think the reason that I had to take a little bit of a step back is because the things that might make me want to pick up a drink, you're not actively encouraged to talk about in those rooms.
Yes.
And that for me was what put the distance in place. You know, there is a tradition that there's sort of no outside issues, but all of my issues are now outside. So where does that place me in terms of being able to talk about what's really going on in my heart, in those spaces? It made me feel like an outsider, and it just didn't work in the same way for me anymore. As I say, I absolutely love those places. They've helped me and they've helped so many people, but that's why I just no longer feel I can be there.
And it's tough though, isn't it? Because obviously when you are in active recovery, you're going to meetings, you kind of got a sponsor, and like we were, you know, like I ran trips to other cities to like support other meetings. Because obviously if I do anything, I'm doing it like, like I can win a medal. Spoiler, there's no medal for staying sober except you stay alive, right? Like,
did you get these little coins though?
Oh, you do, yeah. You do get sobriety chips. I sent my early sobriety chips to people who were very important to me in my life, so I could let them know that I was going to be okay, that I was doing something about it. But yeah, it's tough as people who aren't in AA anymore or going to recovery meetings, who absolutely got so much from it, because there is a little bit of a stigma of what happens when you step outside, right? Because it's that you have an illness, and if you're not treating your disease, your illness in this way, then you're obviously just mad. You know, if someone's relapsed, it's like, oh, well, clearly they're now absolutely kind of off there. And it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, I've certainly had experiences where I've gone back to sort of bring people to their first meeting, or have just needed it that day, and have like sort of come face to face with somebody that clearly wants to know if I've got a bottle of vodka in my bag, and that's not been very welcoming, you know. So I've definitely had some experiences where I'm like, not sure about that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Same.
Yeah.
So, and I, you know, my first sponsor even warned me very early on, with me obviously being a chronic oversharer on the internet. I mean, it's kind of worked out quite all right for me. I mean, we're doing this now, so I clearly didn't listen. But she was just sort of, it's the Russell Brand thing. I mean, fuck, right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
It was that whole thing of like, you just want to be really careful about positioning yourself as a kind of mouthpiece for sobriety or recovery, because when you're going through shit, it can create a real situation, and it also gives people a reason to say, well, it doesn't work. It fucking did work. It does work. I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for recovery, but my relationship with drugs and alcohol, the concept of addiction, my own anxiety, my depression, like fucking all of it has completely changed over the last couple of years. But what I will say is this: what I have observed in you is where I feel I sort of fucked up. Again, there's the compassion, right? But in recovery, they sort of taught us that if we failed to enlarge our spiritual lives, right? It's this whole thing of you're never done. You're never done seeking. You're never done learning. You're never done growing in terms of, you know, practices, tools. You know, AA essentially just takes all of the best components of spiritual practice from around the world and around history and mishmashes it all together. Sufis sponsors, right? The idea of steps comes from the Freemasons. It's kind of like that whole take what you like, leave the rest. The stigma of stepping outside of that, losing your support system is tough, but you are someone who stayed sober without necessarily keep going to meetings, because as far as I see it, you have continued to grow and enlarge that spiritual awareness, that spiritual life. Like when we were in Cyprus, obviously I got really ill. It's not wholly my fault. I was like, fucking Israelis, fucking Palestine, fucking it's dusty, fuck this taxi driver's so aggro, fuck it's hot, like and you were like, Aphrodite, Venus, interesting deity for me. I think I'm going to go to Aphrodite's rock, and I'm definitely going to need a couple of these ornate pomegranates for my altar. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but hold on a minute. Yeah, okay, so what you're saying is I managed to stay sober because I continued to work on that spiritual practice. You literally read tarot cards for a living. You are a spiritual icon in your own right.
Nah, right? Let me tell you now. No, she's not. because I made it my business.
Okay, I see the problem.
Right? Another core component of recovery is acts of service. And I was like, brilliant, I can show up in service and make a business out of it. Don't recommend it. Right? I can make spirituality and my spiritual practice all consuming in my entire fucking life. That'll clearly encourage me to keep coming back to it and growing it and moving it in new directions. Do you see the problem?
Yeah, I do. As somebody that runs my own business and realizing how, you know, it does sort of, well, I've not made myself a single garment in the whole time that I've run my business. You know, I can see the parallels.
Right, there we go. And I have to be like, girl, when was the last time you pulled cards for yourself?
Yeah.
Right? I'll do readings for people and talk about the alchemy of head, heart, hand, and journaling and putting pen to paper, which is something I think we both took from recovery as well. And then I haven't journaled. I haven't journaled in months. Everything that's happening with my brother, everything that's been coming up and surfacing as a result of that, all of it, I will tell people endlessly in the work that I do what might help or support in terms of spiritual practice without holding up my own spiritual practice. And that is also a problem as a practitioner, which is why after the weed smoking, because I'm not smoking weed now, because
How long has it been? How long has it been?
No, I'm not going to say, not long enough.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of me too. And yeah, like trying to, I've taken anxiety. I take medication. I'm medicated.
Mm-hmm.
right? There's pervasive problems sometimes in recovery where you get people that are like, oh, well, you can't take any medication or you're not really sober. Fuck off. You're going to kill people. It doesn't say it in the big book. It's nowhere in the AA literature. There's a lot of people's opinions and what they think that isn't actually fucking recovery. So if anyone out there is trying to get sober and is in those rooms and hearing shit that just doesn't stick, talk to someone else. Ask someone else. Look for the people, like you said, that have been around for 25 fucking years but have got a smile on their face, right?
Yeah.
Because my
Yeah.
God, is there an awful lot of beating yourself up, berating yourself, and kind of like pissing and moaning that doesn't really appeal to me
Yeah, no,
anymore
there's.
either.
I think I found myself in spaces where people were quite like, it needs to be done this way, like very sort of rigid, and that just wasn't going to work for me. And I feel like it pushed me out in a lot of ways, where it's like, if you're not doing this number of meetings, if you're not constantly working this particular step, then you're not doing it. And it's like, do you know what? I got a business to run. And this needs to work with me. This isn't going to be something that I am going to be doing full pelt for the rest of my life. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, because we have to talk about privilege when it comes to recovery, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
we probably came a lot of across a lot of people getting into, like I said, English speaking AA, especially, which was very different to German AA in Germany.
What I will say is, I feel like sort of early recovery for me, looking back, it was all very, very dramatic. And in my mind, I was really going through it, like I can remember, like, you were talking about inventory. And I can remember, like, one sort of step is that you go to your sponsor, you're before your sponsor and you're before God, and you are sort of sharing your inventory. And I can remember thinking, like, oh, he's gonna think that I'm like such a terrible person. This is going to be like the craziest stuff he ever heard. And he was sort of just like, right, is that it? Okay. and for me, I
Yeah.
was like, these were like my darkest secrets and nobody had heard before. But I think that, sort of, in terms of, like, we talk about like having our rock bottom sort of situation, like I think for both of us, our rock bottoms were fairly high,
Thank you, thank
and I
you.
think
Yeah.
that's where you were going. Neither of us were like really seriously at risk of being without a home. We had jobs. We were going to be looked after, and I think there are other people that, you know, have been addicted to much harder substances. There are people that are that are facing homelessness, all that kind of stuff. And I think that it is important to see where your privileges are in your recovery. Like we both had very, very big glow ups very quickly as a result.
Yeah, and because we were coming from a baseline that would have been that much, like you said, we both of our parents are still alive. There's support there, we had friends in the city. We had, like, I didn't have a job. I was unemployed and had absolutely no money whatsoever. Because I decided that what I was going to do to make myself have to get a grip again was quit my job that I loved to pull the only thing that was stable in my life out of the way, because obviously that would force me to have to do me the way I knew how to be me again. It didn't work. But yeah, I've relayed a story to you about someone that I think about all the time. And I was in a women's meeting once, and a woman turned up who had been in a domestic abuse situation and had to leave. They were from America, in Germany, trying to escape America. They didn't have housing and had latched onto this person so they could stay there. And then this person had been very violent, very abusive. And they basically had rocked up at this AA meeting because they had nowhere else to go. And as they were walking away, I said to my sponsor, I was like, am I doing the whole, like, trying to take care of everyone, like, savior bullshit by thinking I should tell this person they can stay at my place for tonight until they can sort out something else? And she was like, no, I think that's a really good thing to do. Because I had a spare bedroom in my flat that I called the drunk tank. Because various people who'd rocked up to the rooms could come and crash there or stay there. I had people live with me for like 3 months, 6 months, where they were kind of finding their feet. And I offered for them to stay in my house, and the chaos, the drama, it was an absolute nightmare. You know, this person was absolutely going through it, having a really tough time. I ended up raising the alarm, asking for help, blah, 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 blah. And we reconnected a couple of weeks later because I said I'd sponsor them. I was like, look, I want to help you. I want to, like, you know, try and offer you some support. And I remember sitting in a restaurant and being like, you've overstayed your visa. We haven't even got a shelter for you to stay in. I'd invited someone else who was a German speaker and had connections and was going to try and help. And they were quite a young person. And I was like, why don't you just go back to the States? Just go back to your mum. Like, why are you on the run in Berlin with no money, houseless, and in these terribly dangerous situations? Because they were so angry. They were just, you know, and everyone's like, oh, resentment. Oh, you got to work on your resentment. And this person sat and they looked me dead in the face and went, would you rather be fat, black and homeless here or there? And it hit me like my fucking privilege with my flat where I had a spare room if you wanted to stay. And like, it hit me like a ton of fucking bricks in terms of how much people really are up against. But I'm telling you now, if you're ever in a city and you need a smiling stranger and someone who will help, if you simply need a hot cup of coffee and somewhere to sit for an hour, find an AA meeting.
Yeah. I mean, that has been my experience. I've always felt very, very welcome. There's always someone to talk to. I mean, in the beginning, I was like, why do all these people want to give me their numbers? They fancy me.
Don't hurt me. Don't fucking touch me.
Yeah.
I'm here. I mean, I like you, does it? I mean, I want to be fucking friends with you. Fuck off. I see you over there lip syncing the promises.
Oh my God, don't. Okay, yeah, me and Hannah have obviously got quite a few in-jokes surrounding this. But...
Yeah, of course we do. But I mean, I think obviously the point here, rather than us taking this rambling journey together down memory lane and crying, and is because I know I cannot be the only one who has a complicated relationship with weed, any other kind of fucking drugs, booze, because obviously I did that thing. So it was about 2 years ago now where I was like, I'm going to smoke some weed. And I was like, okay, this is clearly not a great plan. But just because I've smoked weed doesn't mean I have to have a drink. Went out, got shit-faced. Woke up the next day. Thank you, Kev, for coming to pick me up. I nearly ended up on a tour bus again, right? Like, it was because I think it's because I got to Belfast and I was lonely. I missed the Berlin community, and I resorted to pulling on a pair of cowboy boots and a leather jacket and going to a bar. Because I wanted to recapture something of the spirit or the energy that I felt that I had at that time. I didn't. I just woke up feeling like someone had driven a railway spike through my frontal lobe. But here's the thing. I didn't keep drinking. I didn't keep drinking. There's no part of me ever. We've got booze in and around the house. I'm not like, oh, I guess I'll just help myself to a cheeky Jack Daniels at 2:00 in the afternoon, right? I'm not in active recovery. I'm not working the steps, but I went out, I got drunk, and I was like, I don't ever need to do that again in my fucking life. But occasionally now, if I go out to dinner or I might be like, do you know what? I'll have a glass of wine. And I can have a glass of wine without that thing that I absolutely did identify as addiction. And I know I have to keep a real eye on being like, do you know what we should do? Just finish the bottle and then order another one. That isn't there in terms of the booze, but where I had the issue was with the weed. And I'll be honest, I have felt awful because it's very easy, like you said, it's because you've been so up against it, you've had such a terrible time. I know people, right, because I can say it was fucking Palestine. Palestine broke my heart.
Yeah.
Fuck your God, man. Fuck your God. Who are we praying to, right? Like, are you serious? I can't unsee. None of us can unsee. I know everyone listening knows exactly what I'm talking about, right? It still makes me feel sick. I know Palestinians who've stayed sober.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah, my brothers, your brothers got cancer. I know people who've lost loved ones to cancer who are also Palestinian. And they've stayed fucking sober. right? So we do have to I have to keep a real watch on this idea of like, well, yeah, but this is why I can't fucking
Yeah,
do it
but hold
anymore.
on a minute. Where are we going with this? This just sounds like you are constructing a rather large stick to beat yourself with, babe. That does
I'm
sound
just
like rather a
saying,
lot.
true. I also moved country again.
Yeah.
Basically got hounded out of Belfast, having fucking opened my mouth because I am who I am and I don't regret it for an instant. Like we've had all sorts. I got married, I turned 40. It's like it all just culminated at once for me. But the weird thing I think is that I'd love to sit here with you this morning and be like, do you know what? I had 7 years and I relapsed and it's the worst thing that I ever fucking did. And I really wish I was 9 years sober and I'd be 10 years sober. And I've had like a little tiny bit of it at times in the midst of it, but it would be really dishonest for me to sit here and say that I felt like that because I don't.
Great.
It's the journey, babe,
For
isn't it?
me, my journey. Like
It's the journey.
for me, so long as I'm hearing that you're happy, I don't care. Like I just want to know that you've got what you need and that you're happy. And I know that that's not always been the case, but like I'm never going to tell you off for any of this. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not never going to be that sober friend.
Well, we wouldn't be able to be friends or have the quality of relationship that we have if that was the case,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I feel so terrible with hindsight at the times that I, as a sober person, inactive kind of 12-step, the way I reacted to people who
Mm,
had relapsed or
mm.
who'd fallen off the fucking wagon, Like I think of a friend of ours whose mum was dying.
Yeah.
And he smoked weed with his mum when she was dying, and I
Mm,
was honest about it and came and said, yeah, I fucking relapsed because I wanted to have that experience with my fucking mum. And I was like, oh my god, well, it's a relapse, it's a fucking relapse, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I sit here today and I'm like, oh, I get it, I get it, I get it. And I think the most important thing is that I know something about a baseline now. I know something about self-awareness. I know something about emotional regulation. I know, like, I picked up these tools and I can use them. And I know that I will always have to have a watchful eye on where I am with booze and stuff. But I'm not gonna say I'm great. I'm not grateful I relapsed. I'm not grateful for for it. But I just kind of feel like it gave me an opportunity to dig a bit deeper and to sit with some shit, because also what you can tiptoe into is spiritual bypassing.
Oh, yeah, no, completely. And I mean, when you think about recovery, I think there is a lot of that sort of to be covered, really. And that, I think, is a lot of the stuff that pushed me away. But I think that for me, there's definitely been times, especially with, sort of Palestine and other things, where I've definitely thought I would love to push the fuck it button right now. But I think for me, there has always been like I feel like that day that I described before where I said I woke up and I was so full of shame and I couldn't look in the mirror. I've never lost that. Like there was always this very, very strong memory of that I think up until now at least has always stood in the way and would always say, because I don't know like what would happen. Maybe I could just have one drink and that would be it, or maybe I could be down the same trajectory again and I could lose everything I've worked for, and that terrifies me so much that it's been enough to keep me away so far.
I think for me as well, what's interesting is the fact that there's going to be some people that will listen to this and be like, wow, there's two untreated alcoholics who are both completely crazy yammering away on a podcast, right? But there's
Yeah.
other people that are going to be like, Christ, I so appreciate this conversation and I appreciate the honesty and thanks for taking us on your journey today. And here's the thing, I'm still on the fucking journey. It's just that I kind of pulled over at a rest stop and I watched the raccoons rifle through the trash cans, and I made a playlist and kind of, now I'm happy to keep on trucking. I'm gonna stay on the road. So I'm not gonna be someone that's like, oh, I'm sober, because again, if I want to have a pint of the black stuff on St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, But here's the thing: I'm a perimenopausal fucking woman in my 40s. I'm not getting shit faced. I can't do it. Can't handle it.
I think there's also this sort of idea in recovery spaces that, you relapse and you have to start again from square one. And I
Mm.
really, really don't believe that. I still think that everything that you've learned in your journey, like along the way, is still relevant and you still bring that into your life. So the idea, I really don't like this idea of starting from scratch at every relapse. Like you've still done all that work on yourself.
I'm not counting days. I haven't really been like, oh, it's this. I haven't got that date now, and
Mm-hmm.
that whole thing of like, oh, am I sober now because I've quit smoking weed? Well, no, I can't be sober because if I have a drink, if I and that's when we talk about emotional sobriety, right? In the fact that you can put down the substances and not be okay. And I think the tough thing for me was that at about 6, 7 years of sobriety, and I had a very good. My second sponsor was a fucking legend. Is a fucking legend. Like,
I remember,
what
yeah,
an
wow.
icon. I remember my sponsor coming in to do a share, kicking back in their chair in a leather jacket and putting their biker boots up on the table and saying that their favourite feeling in the world was just being like a pair of lungs and a heartbeat while laying on the floor. And I was like, amen,
Icon.
sister, right? But I remember her saying, people always say the first year of recovery is the hardest. Lies, lies. When I turned 5, she was like, right, shit's about to get real because this is the year where you're either going to put a gun in your mouth. Right? And so I think the point I want to make is just because you stop with the shit doesn't mean that life gets easier. There is so much that you have to do, and recovery helps you put the booze down, but then you've got the body work, you've got the somatic work, you've got the therapy that you will need to do because a sponsor is just another batshit crazy alcoholic, right? They can hear you and they can help you, but there's probably other stuff that you're going to need to work on in a lot of other ways. And I've seen it in recovery when people don't fucking do that, right? They're sober, but they're not what they call emotionally sober because they're fucking miserable. And it happened to me. I was like, I am doing this thing, right? I have not got a fuck it button and I feel fucking awful. I'm sick and tired of feeling sick and tired and I'm fucking sober. And I know a lot of people be like, yeah, but you weren't going to the meetings and you went. I was like, yeah, but I did it every fucking day, some weeks for 7 fucking years. So I think there is that point of everybody having to recognize what works for them when it's working for them. And when it stops working for them, it's about, as we said, enlarging our practice, doing different things rather than being, I guess I'll just go back to being a fucking goblin with a spliff in my mouth 24/7.
Can I just say, I think the idea that the first year is the hardest year is insane. Like,
Yes,
what I
it's
will
fucking...
say, what I will say is like
What?
the first month, right, was really bad because I remember I would have panic attacks just trying to cross the street. There very much was sort of like the physical symptoms and all of that were really, really hard to get through, and I felt like I was just, it was really was like 24 hours at a time, just trying to get through it. But I had that community. And for the first year, I can remember going to those meetings and feeling that kinship with the other people there and knowing that we had each other's backs. We were turning up and we were saying, I had a month today. Like it was just all the hope and all of the wonder that came from very early recovery and spirituality that really just made that time quite wonderful, actually. But by sort of year 4 or 5, going to meetings and sort of looking around and thinking like, am I going to have to come to these rooms with these nutters for the rest of my life? Because I ain't about that. So it was...
Yeah, but we were those nutters,
Yeah. So by year 5, I was I was really struggling. Whereas year 1, there was that connection to the group, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it must be really wonderful to be a person that has just really got it and really wants that for the rest of their life, but it wasn't going to be me.
No, I mean, obviously hard relate at this point, and like I said, anyone listening is definitely going to have their own opinion, and that opinion's going to be formed through their own experience, and we want to leave space for everyone's experience. But I think what made that period so great is that we had community, camaraderie, and connection. And I read something the other day when we talk about trying to regulate a nervous system, and I said last week, your nervous system is probably shot to shit right now because that would be a normal and natural response to what we've been made to bear witness to. But Humans, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, we are chemically connected. And if you are anxious and stressed, if you sit in the presence of people who are calm, it will calm you. And I used to feel that and call it God. It's a God shot, right? It's the spiritual connection people feel in the rooms. It's that you're sitting in calm connection and community with your fellow people, right? Because that's what we are made for. That is what we're meant for, because addiction is a disease of isolation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rooms were definitely that for me for a long time. But I have a lot of those connections outside of those spaces now. As I told you last time, I've joined a druid order, but also I have to say the cult. You know, being able to show up in the cult and we have conversations, we check in, we say, this is what's going on for me at the moment. You know, we get our snaps, we talk about the things that are going well for us, and we also talk about the things that are hard. And for me, I mean, I can very much see where some of those things might have come from as well.
100%.
And people need it. I think everyone needs to have that connection and those spaces that they can go, not just people that are in recovery or dealing with addiction.
Do you remember where the name Cult Mother came from?
Not really.
It was you. You called me Cult Mother for the first time. We were sat together in that office we worked in there together for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Not doing what we were supposed to be doing, obviously. I mean,
Well,
you weren't
yeah.
the only one. I don't know how the fuck I got away with any of that. I remember saying, we were talking about AA and we were like, but it is a cult, right? It is a fucking cult. And you were like, yeah, it is a cult. And I was like, but it's weird now because like I'm in a cult, but it's a cult of like, are you going to get home safe? And have you had enough water? And what do you need? And you were like, yeah, you're like, it's weird. You're like Cult Mother.
I didn't know that was how it came about. That's funny.
Yeah, you said, yeah, it's like, because I was talking about like when you go out sober and everyone's all dancing, but it's weird now because I'm like keeping an eye out for everyone. And like as a sponsor, you're just kind of like, you know, I don't have any kids. And it's a weird comparison to the sponsor-sponsee relationship, I suppose. But there's an element of it, right? Like you're feeding that kind of matriarchal, kind of maternal thing can kick in so many different ways for me as a child-free person. And you were just like, yeah, it's a cult. And you're like, Cult Mother. And I was like, that's fucking brilliant.
That's so funny. That's so funny because I think I just assumed that we were just rolling off names together and I'd said that one. I don't remember that.
No, it was we were specifically talking about kind of how we felt we had changed. And rather than me being the master of disaster, I was now the person being like, yeah, but have you got this? And have you remembered to do that? And have you, you know, like, have you drunk some water? Have you taken your medication? This is the person who like 5 years prior to that point would wake up like screaming at a sponsor in the morning who would be like, eat something and phone me back. Like literally my first sponsors used to answer the phone with have a banana and just hang up on me. Lord, that was a journey.
It's my journey.
It's my journey. But babes, absolutely massive, massive congratulations, of course, because I'm always immensely proud of you for the fact that one day at a time, it's going to be 9 years in May. How does it feel?
It's such a strange one because, you know, we used to make such a big deal about our sobriety dates. Like early recovery, it was, you know, you'd go to the big meeting in front of everyone and you'd sort of give your Oscar speech as you picked up your chip. And, you know, like it was a huge deal. I used to give them to my mum as well, who, you know, was just, I think, very grateful that she didn't have to worry about me in the same way. And these days, it just sort of feels like just another day. You know, I feel like 10 will be a big one. Like I got quite a big tattoo on my 5th, and I might do that again for 10. But it just, I think it just serves as a reminder for me of like, you get this because you are not doing that. Like, because for me, I knew that I was never going to become this version of myself if I carried on the way I was. And I think that day is just a time for me to pause and see how far I've come.
Which is a fucking long way.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, as if that was 9 years ago.
I know it doesn't seem real when I think about the fact that I left Berlin over 3 years ago. It doesn't seem real. But I will say this. which maybe is a nice way for us to start wrapping things up today. I said to Kev the other day that the most amazing thing about our friendship is that even after I left Berlin and we no longer live in the same city, I don't feel like our friendship suffered.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like, as much as I'd love to go and take you for a donut and give you a big hug, and like, we've both obviously made the effort, but we might not see each other for 6 months, like 8 months. But the caliber, the quality of our friendship is such that I don't feel like there was a like, oh, well, Tommy and my friendship used to be at this level, but then obviously now it's sort of depleted or dropped a bit because we don't have that face-to-face time or in-person contact. If anything, I think we kind of really make the most of the time we do get to spend together. You know, we don't ever do surface level fucking conversations about anything in the time that we spend on the phone.
No, we don't. We're definitely not afraid to go there. But I also think, you are the person when something happens that I'm like, I need to talk to Hannah about it now, And that's it.
I love that Robbie is like, call Hannah. Just talk to Hannah.
Yeah.
Kev will pass me my phone and be like, did you maybe want to call Tommy? Like, I'll be like howling in the duvet, and Kev will just be like, maybe just, what's Tommy doing?
Yeah, like recently I've been in sort of because I've crossed over into having to do VAT this year, and I'm now having to write all these invoices for shops, and it's all really new and I don't understand, and there's different VAT for the different countries and stuff. Like, I'm trying to talk to Robbie about it. Robbie doesn't run his own business. Robbie doesn't know what I'm talking about. But also I'm really stressed and upset about it and really suffering, and he's like, you need to call Hannah and talk to Hannah about this. Like,
I have the exact same thing in the fact that I've made an almighty mess of our finances, which is the finances for our entire household, moving countries, not really wanting to play the tax game, but not wanting to go to prison. But it's like, it is really difficult. But I think, again, community, camaraderie, connection, right? Finding those people who can understand firsthand what it is that you're fucking going through is what recovery was all about, right? Is everyone there was like, yeah, I've also snorted unidentified substances that I found on the floor off of a disgusting toilet cistern in a fall down squat somewhere. Like when people used to share and they were like, wow, and then I was in this neighborhood and then the back door of the vehicle got shot out before I found this body in a dumpster, like those were my people. That was my story. Like that was.
Yeah. No, completely. And I think certainly in early recovery, just going and listening to the stories was pretty fab as well. Just hearing some of the things that people got up to, and also, I mean, obviously some of the drama that would go on between the people in those meetings sometimes was quite a lot of fun as well. The tea.
I haven't talked about 13th stepping because neither of us wanted to shit talk AA.
No, absolutely not.
Right, there's AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. There's NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous. There is CODA for codependence. There's CA. There's so many different branches of the recovery tree. If you don't feel that alcohol is your primary issue, you can kind of check out other meetings. So neither of us wanted to shit talk recovery because we will both admit it absolutely transformed and changed our lives. Every bit of dabbling, fucking about, relapsing that I have been doing in the last 2.5 years, all it has served is it's shown me that I am a fucking addict and I have to be phenomenally careful, and I have to be doing an awful lot of fucking stuff to stay well and to stay regulated if I'm not in recovery. But we have to talk about 13th stepping. Like there are 12 steps in recovery, so people talk about the 13th step, and it's like this hush, yes, we know it happens, and it's basically predatory behavior. If you try and 13th step someone, you're basically cracking onto them. These people are showing up in these meetings in the most vulnerable state that they might ever have been in their life, and unfortunately the reality is that there are people around who are more than happy to take advantage of that. And it's something that I absolutely saw a lot. It's something that I am still perennially fucking disgusted by, especially the cis straight fucking he hims in the rooms, right? Given the whole like, yeah, and God helps me be a better fucking person, and I'm here trying to be the best man I can be, and I'm like, and you're also fucking newcomers. Like you're also having an affair with this person who's 10 years younger than you and trying to string days together, motherfucker. So like, and I used to just have to get up, leave the room, put those guys on blast. And my second sponsor was phenomenally good at that.
Yeah.
You know, because this whole like, these rooms are for everyone, not if you're not safe, not if you're not a safe person, not if you're so sick you're here to fucking spread that sickness. So you know, if you go somewhere and you're made to feel uncomfortable, again, talk to someone who's got more time. Tell them, because it's not on and it isn't okay, and it shouldn't fucking happen. And I've actually taken people to meetings in the hope it would help them, and they were so on the receiving end of creepy fucking behavior from people being like, oh, I'll get your phone number, I'll help you talk about your issues, that they didn't go back, and that's fucking heartbreaking to me. Why can't they just behave? Why are they like this? God.
Oh.
God, they ruin everything.
They do.
Did anybody ever crack onto you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, yes.
Did I ever actually date anyone? Oh, I don't even want to go there. Let's not even go there. Yeah. It was what it was like. It's what happened, but it's more importantly what it's like now. And I'm immensely proud of us sitting down and having this conversation today, all things considered.
Me too, because I think it's not really a conversation that happens very often, and I don't think there are many people that are comfortable talking about what happens afterwards. What happens when you're no longer a part of those rooms, because it's, you know, like the sort of the way it is there is it's very much like you don't drink no matter what, and you keep coming back to meetings. What happens when you don't, you know, and what kind of conversations can we have outside of that as well?
Well, it's that whole idea of like, you're sober, right? You're my best friend. I know you. I've known your behavior over a long period of time. But there would be people who are far more involved that would be like, wow, Tommy's just mental. He's obviously mental because he's an untreated alcoholic who hasn't been to the rooms for a couple of years. He hasn't been doing it consistently. He hasn't been working the steps with a sponsor. And I'm like, from where I'm sat, my best mate's fucking killing it. But again, they'd be like, yeah, but I'm not listening to you. Right? Smokey the Bandit.
Listen, I've definitely come up against that. And there have definitely been people in my life that have made that argument. But I feel like I'm in the best place I could possibly be. I have a spiritual connection and I'm doing everything that I can. And I know what I need. And that's it.
There we go. And maintaining that autonomy, I think, is really important. But if you're like really struggling, and if you've never been to a meeting, maybe check out a meeting. I used to say to people, just pretend you're Louis Theroux. All right? Just go and be Louis Theroux. You can be there and observe and listen. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. And that's fucking fine. No one's going to try and indoctrinate you or brainwash you. Or you make your own choices and you make your own decisions. You can say no. But also there are many, many different ways. Harm reduction. Harm reduction is a topic that is pissed on from great heights quite often in 12-step based recovery, because you're either fucking sober or you're not, right? But being like, actually, I might be having an issue here, so I might be looking to reduce my consumption, is such a great place to fucking start. Just acknowledging that you need to look at that relationship, I think, is really fucking important.
I completely agree. And I think, sort of to your point where you said, like, just be Louis Theroux, I think that's really good, because I think lots of people get very, very hung up about the idea of going to their first meeting. It's like, well, I can't go there because I'm not an alcoholic because of this, or I don't think I would feel comfortable because of the God thing. All of this kind of stuff where it's like, just... And I think there's so much fear about the judgment of arriving in an AA room, putting your hand up and saying, my name's Tommy and I'm an alcoholic. But actually, what you're just working it out. Like, you can just go and just see how you feel about it. And I promise you will be welcomed with open arms. Those people will make you a cup of tea and they'll ask how you're doing. You know, so it's a great place to start, even if it isn't something that's going to stick for you.
I've known people that were kind of in and around, and it just didn't kind of click for them, and then they maybe tried different groups, different styles of recovery, but the common denominator, as far as I've seen it, is community, camaraderie, connection.
Yeah.
Being honest with yourself, being honest with other people, like we've got a certain framework and a certain language that we learn, but there's so many different frameworks, there's so many different ways of kind of working if it's something that you feel is an issue, and getting to the point where you understand it's a problem can sometimes be tricky. But for me, it's the fact that it's occupying more of my time in my mind, especially in terms of whether or not this is a good thing. Maybe I shouldn't do this. If I do this, maybe I only do it at this time. And then it's the negotiating and the time, effort, and energy that it takes to try to maintain or monitor the relationship.
Yeah, I think for me, I could really see it if I was out having a drink with somebody that wasn't an alcoholic, because I was constantly thinking about what was and wasn't appropriate. So it would be like, I would be thinking about where you were in your glass and where I am in my glass. And if I order another drink straight away, is that going to look really bad? If you go to the toilet, am I just going to down a bunch of your drink and also finish mine and order another one in the time that you're in the toilet? It's stuff like that where it's like, the amount of space that this is taking up in my mind is perhaps the thing that makes it a problem.
Yeah, right. That whole idea of normies, right? Well, I don't really know what that means. People who don't identify as chaos goblins, I guess, right? Just being like, wait, other people don't think like that. Like other people aren't being like, have I got a problem, as a daily conversation with yourself, and that for me is the kind of like,
I think most people have got it with something though, because I have to say, like, now that I don't drink, I'm quite obsessed with food. So I feel like it'll always pop up somewhere for me because I am that kind of personality.
Okay, so Kev went to bed. I was like, I'm gonna play games. I'm gonna play my Switch 2 because I am worrying about today. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with kind of staying awake, occupying my mind. And so I decided I was going to build a special house for Pikachu. Don't ask, right? And it 6 o'clock this morning.
Wow.
I was like, I have managed to sit here gaming, I think, for at least 8 hours continuously without even realizing that I am doing that, right? It's and so when we talk about keeping an eye on where it is that this behavior can show up, even if you're not like, oh, I don't drink, I don't, right? I think, but it's tough because you can be like, I'm excited about a new video game that's fun to play. It's deliberately immersive, right? I am anxious about things in my life, and so having that as a distraction right now is positive. Or you flip the lens and go, oh no, I'm a crazy unhinged addict who spent hours playing a video game, which means I'm clearly in my addiction and I have to absolutely do you see what I mean? So the idea of trying to find the middle path, not existing in it's this or it's that, has been the continual practice for me of the past couple of years. And the getting out of the binary of I'm an alcoholic, I'm not an alcoholic, I'm this, I'm that, I have to do this, I can't do that, and just being like, where am I and who am I in the day that I'm in, and what do I need, and how can I just try and be fucking nicer to myself about it?
Yeah, completely. And also just placing it in the timeline that we find ourselves as well, because I think that's been one of the hardest things for me, where it's like, as I said, the main sort of issue that I had with those spaces is I didn't feel like I could talk about those things. And I've definitely had sort of conversations with people where they've maybe alluded to the idea that it could be because I'm struggling because I'm not in those spaces. It's like, I can honestly say, hand on my heart, that I'm struggling because of where we find ourselves in the world right now.
It's really hard because the whole idea of anonymity, right? The whole idea of Alcoholics Anonymous and going, I'm Hannah, I'm an alcoholic, is it makes everyone the same from the start. It's a non-hierarchical structure. And as you sit in that space, the reason there's no outside issues is because we all love arguing and it would be very divisive and difficult to keep the group together. But the reality of the fact is, I'm not going to sit and spill my guts in a room with someone who's a fucking Zionist. I can't, I'm not going to feel safe practicing vulnerability in a room full of people that don't want to talk about the fact that Israel has systematically murdered tens of thousands of fucking children. If you are not sharing about it, if you are not incensed about it, if you're going to be like, oh, it's just been really tough for me because I usually go to spin class on a Wednesday and I just feel without that structure in my life because my instructor's sick. I'm like, I'm ready to stab you in the fucking neck. And if that makes me sick, if that makes me an untreated fucking alcoholic, if that makes me like, so fucking be it, because I will not sit and break bread in rooms full of people who want to pretend that we are not living in the reality that we're living in today, because I said it already, it's spiritual fucking bypassing. Yeah, but you've just got to place your care in a loving higher power. What, so you don't have to show up? So you don't have to fucking do anything? Do you remember that incredible trans woman?
I do.
Yeah. I know you do.
Yeah.
I remember some people who came in and around and they stood up and they took a chip, and instead of doing the whole like, oh, I'm so grateful, they were like, I really like it here, and it's great that y'all are doing this, but I'm going to need you to be doing a whole heap of what you're doing in here out there. I'm going to need you to be the people that you say you are when you sit here, and I'm going to need to see that on the street.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, fucking preach. Yes, girl. Yes. You know? People sitting in meditation meetings and being like, you lot all look really fucking stupid sat here with your eyes closed. Like, I was so there for that energy. Well, we did it, babe.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
We went on a journey. We went on a journey there.
Journey.
I absolutely want to obviously thank everyone who has been listening. If you stuck with us thus far, thank you so much. A special shout out, especially to our new Patreon paid sign up, slinging us those coffees, chucking us those donuts, the occasional club martyr. It keeps the whole thing ticking over. Jess, Maggie, Ryan, I really want to say your name correctly, let me know. Kathy, Melinda, welcome to the pod. Thank you so much for your contribution. We so appreciate it. Didn't we buy a special condom for your microphone this week, Tommy?
We did. We were having a conversation as we started about how Hannah's still podcasting unprotected with an unsheathed microphone. Raw dogging.
But shout out to Kev, editor, producer. It's all very DIY, but wow, am I so impressed with what my husband has been able to do for us in terms of turning these episodes around with the amount of editing that they absolutely need, with all of the screaming and the crying and the cackling and everything else that happens in here. And thank you, Tommy, for coming and sitting down having this talk today, despite the fact that you are stressed out about things like value-added tax, Umsatzsteuer.
Well, I mean, you've got rather a lot on your plate as well, my love. How are you feeling right now?
One day at a time, innit?
One day at a time.
One day at a time, you know? I've learned that as an anxious person, I always live in the worst case scenarios because it's my effort to be prepared or to protect myself, which doesn't work, of course. It makes you anxious. That's anxiety. Thanks for describing anxiety to us, Anna. So I've had to allow for that. I know it's going to happen, but I also have to remember that there can be positive results, there can be breakthroughs, there can be fucking miracles, right? The situation that we're in is not going to benefit at all from me not being able to keep my shit together. So now more than ever, and I know that I need to be doing all of those things that I have to do to keep the baseline where it needs to be. And it has been a really rough few months, and I haven't been as good as that as I want to be. And as a result, I think everyone's mad at me.
It'd be like
but
that.
This conversation's been very cathartic. It's been very healing. It's been very helpful, and I hope it's the same for anyone listening today. And all I would say is we've fucking been there. We know. If you need to send us a private message, you can use the message function on our Patreon. Remember, it's free to sign up if you want to. I know I'd be more than happy to chat with anyone in the messages there. In terms of anything we've kind of discussed today, connection, community, camaraderie.
Yeah.
The 3 C's. Make it the 4 C's. Let's add cunty in there as well.
Yeah.
Anything else we wanted to say today? Anything else we needed to talk about?
I mean, I would like to talk about Madeline Ashton personally, but
Madeline Ashton. If you know, you know. That's a slightly niche reference in 2026, I think. Does that film qualify as vintage now?
Oh my God.
Death Becomes Her. If you haven't seen it, put it on the watch list immediately. Iconic. It truly was a different time. We need to bring back big hair and shoulder pads and blue eyeshadow.
Yes. And a cunty little bob.
A cunty little bob. Right then. Well, all of you lot, take the very best care out there. Do let us know if there's anything particular you would like us to discuss. Remember, you can sign up to the Patreon, but you can also find us on YouTube. It's Tommy and Hannah Pod. And as usual, we'd love it if you could click subscribe and like and stuff, because that would be really good for us. Because if we're going to keep finding the steam to keep showing up, we're going to want to start gathering some momentum. Let's build a Tommy and Hannah podcast army and get busy fixing some of this shit. Treat yourself. Hit a man in the head with an egg for Easter. Oh, that's it from me. Is that it from you?
I think that's it from me. I've got to do all sorts of things today. My God.
I know we wanted to talk about the fact we all hope Benjamin Netanyahu is dead, but the day will come, and when it does, we'll suitably celebrate. Well, we'll just say bye then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.